Hello, I'm Chris, this is Gross Models, and this is my latest build. It's not so much of a build, just a repaint basically. You may have noticed that I'm building the half-scale R2-D2. So I picked up a little companion for him. I say a little companion, but yeah, it's a half-scale C-3PO. Now, unfortunately, the quality of the paint is a bit rubbish. I'll come back down to where I can see you. So what I'm going to do is basically repaint it. I've picked up hopefully a bit more of a glossy gold and a silver, because I'm going to be losing the red arm, which I don't like, and replacing the silver leg, which is traditional. So what I'm going to do is take it apart and then prime it and paint it. What I'm also going to do is fill in these screw holes. I may not be able to do all of the ones on the back because obviously I need them to put it back together again, but certainly the ones on the arms and the legs I shall be doing, and the other addition I shall be doing is the solid bits inside the arm servos. I'll have to drill out and file those down so they work better. I did consider putting actual wires into the belly, but I don't think I'm going to bother doing that. I think I'm just going to be painting those in by hand afterwards. I don't think these colours are particularly important or canon anyway, but I'll be putting in, let's say, a variation of colours throughout it. I also have been thinking about lighting up the eyes, but again, that's something to play around with afterwards. First thing I'm going to do is undo these screws on the back, take it apart so I've got a pile of arms, legs and head and body, and then see about priming and painting that. So I've got to do that outside because it's rattle cans rather than, you know, normal spray can, because it's a little bit large, as you may have noticed. So I'm going to get him taken apart and then we'll see about getting outside and doing some painting after I've filled these. I'll get him apart and then I'll show you filling some of the holes and we'll go from there. So I'll see you in a moment. Well, that's a little bit more manageable now. Basically I've got the arms and legs off. The legs are still pretty huge, but luckily I don't have to do anything with them except for fill those couple of holes, which I shall do. What I'm going to do is remove this. Now I'm just using a Dremel, which hopefully has got enough charge in it to do this. If it gets a bit loud, I apologise, but basically got a bit in there that I can just drill through. So that comes all the way through there. Basically leaves me with a hole. What I'm going to do is do that in lots of places, getting quite close to the articulated bit that I need to without actually touching it, and I'll be filing, basically joining these holes together. I might try doing it with this, it depends how. Yeah, I can move that sideways through those holes quite convincingly. So hopefully I can remove most of this, as I say, with power tool, and then I can file the edges down to make it neater and nicer, and then let's turn that off so I can continue talking. Let's say just finish off the edges a little bit, and then if I need to touch it up with some mould or plaster, then I can do that. I've been filling in the holes with a bit of sprue glue, which I'm hoping is going to work. I've actually packed them out a bit with some dowel because they're quite big holes, so I'm going to leave that to dry and see how that works. If it doesn't, I'll have to see about using something else, but it's only going to be a cover for the paint. It's not going to have to put up with any strains or anything, so hopefully that'll do it. I'll get that done and then I'd say should be ready for priming. The gold testing worked okay on the body pieces, so I'm just adding some of the brush painting in Tamiya rubber black to the black segment, I'll then paint in the coloured wires. I'm going to use a couple of pictures and see if I can pick out wires in the right, right order, the right colours. Doesn't really bother me that much, but there's that many pictures of him around that it's worth having a look at and see. So I'm going to get this painted in, then probably give it another coat as well. It's not coming out too badly, but it's also could be a bit darker and a bit better. I deliberately went a rubber black because I think it's probably like a rubber in-suit anyway, so it gives the best look to it, but when it dries it's still got some gold coming through bits of it, so I'll give it another coat in a bit as well, and then we'll get on with the rest of it. I've been filling the holes in the legs and the arms, so once that's dry, I'll sort of sand that down and get that nice and smooth, and then get those painted as well. This is the gold finish, which comes out quite nice. It's certainly nicer than the original gold colour, so I get that done and get the bottom of the leg silver as well. So see you in a moment. While I'm waiting for the filling in these holes to dry and I'm drilling out the bits on the arms, I've been playing with electricity. Now, I wanted to light the eyes, so looking at pictures and things, it looks like each eye is lit by 3 little bulbs behind it. So I wired up 3 little bulbs to a couple of batteries and they didn't work. It seems that the most I can get out of these 2 cells in there are 2 lights, which we'll have to do because I can't be bothered to. This is what I've got at hand and this is what I'm going to be using, so I'll have 2 lights behind each eye. Now, I tried 3D printing the eye, but I can't get it fine enough to print on the printer that I have. So what I've ended up with is basically the eye inset without the Venetian blind type things in it, and a backing piece which I printed in orange. Now what I'm going to do is, using some plastic card, make the slits across there like the original eye, spray that gold, and then with the orange bit sitting behind it, with the 2 bulbs sitting behind it all stuck in place, I can have an eye that lights up orange. Obviously the camera's auto white balancing to compensate for it, so instead of having 3 little spots, I'm going to have 2 little spots either side, but that's, you've got to look pretty close to see that. I think it's just impressive that I've been able to get some eyes lighting up. So that's the next stage. That diffuses it nicely enough that I'm not worried about spots. I could put it a little bit further away maybe, but then that obviously makes it dimmer. So I think I'm going to go right up against and probably hot glue them in place, and obviously solder these together rather than just twisting and hoping. So I'll have one of them for each eye. So I'll have a couple of switches that I've got to locate somewhere, unless I just wire it up to one switch. I can play around with that. If I wire another one of those in series with another 2 batteries in it, I should be able to get 4 lights out of it. That's my theory anyway. I'll play around and cannibalise that in a moment. But just to let you know what I'm going to be doing, so cutting out some plastic card to put the slits across there. I've got 2 of them ready to go. So I just need to do the electronics and then drill out the eyes and fit them in. I haven't sprayed the head yet, as you may have noticed. It's not the nice shiny gold colour that I've got on the rest of it, because I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do it, but I'm going to basically drill these out. The black spots in the middle, obviously I've got holes there at the moment. I'm thinking I might just cover with a black, bit of plastic and have it black, because you're not going to be seeing into the head when the lights are on, but we'll see. Probably going to spray the inside black just to help with reflections and stuff anyway. So that's that. I'm drilling out, as I showed you. Didn't show you this one, but this is the one that's better. Almost happy with that. It's not quite there, but to be honest, the moulding on the rest of it's not quite there anyway, so I'm not concerned about getting that perfect, because nothing else is. That's that. I haven't sprayed anything else yet, so I'm going to get on with that. The next step is the body. Let me move the camera up a bit. Now this obviously has been painted, and I've gone over the interior section in the rubber black, so I just need to brush paint on the wires in colours. Looking at pictures and references, they change between the films anyway, the patterns and the colours, so I'm not worried about getting that screen accurate, because there isn't such a thing. So I'm going to go for basically what was on it before: red, yellows, golds, red, yellow, blue, maybe orange, just whatever primary colours I've got floating around. So I'll do some brush painting in a minute with that, sort out these lights, and then sort of assembly once I've sanded down and sprayed these. The filler there I've touched up again and gone over a bit. Basically I need to remove the excess, which comes off quite easily, even though it's not fully dry yet. Basically sand that down to get it. Some of these are a bit higher than others. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but that's the side that you're not going to see anyway. I've got its hand the wrong way around. It's the inside, so again, it's better than it was. I'm not going for a perfect replica, because it's a cheap plastic made in China thing, as it says on his foot. Made in China, 2016, Jakks Pacific Inc. So yeah, better than it was is what I'm aiming for with this build. As ever, I'm not going to get anything perfect, so no point in really aiming for it, so I'm just going to go for happy enough. So I'll get on with that and show you that in a bit. On my update, I've got the 4 bulbs wired up into 4 batteries, and they work fine. Only need to switch one switch on and off, so that's nice and easy. Now what I've been doing is the front bit, the slats in the eyes. I've not been measuring them, I've been doing them by eye. See what I did? Yeah, okay, I won't try that anymore. So I've done the first one and it's fine. I'd like to get a few more in there, but I think it's a bit too thick. You don't want it to come away too much. So basically that's going to go behind it. This is obviously going to be gold, and then through that, let me turn these back on, you'll have the couple of gold, couple of bulbs showing, and that will light up just quite nicely. So I'm happy with the way that's going. So what I'm doing is the second one. Basically I've got some plastic plate that I just need to cut to the right size. So basically I'm getting it where I've already got one that's about right. Just need to mark where that is, score that across, snap it off, check to make sure it is the right size, so it's going to fit in there. Actually that's a bit thin, so I might use that for the next one across. That's, yeah, that's come up a bit short. That's almost perfect for the next one though, so let's cut another piece. The thickness isn't very important. I've got something, something to play around with at the back there anyway. But I do need more than that, because I've got to do a bit the other side anyway. So I'm going a bit wider than that one. We'll go over there, shall we? And again, just snapping it off. It's harder to do in 2 directions, but it's not impossible with these. It's fairly easy. Snaps quite well. So let's check that one again. That's a good bit. That's actually a little bit too long, so let's trim that down just a touch. Okay, I'm happy that that's going to be good. So a little bit of Gorilla Glue, being that this is well, the surround is PLA rather than ABS plastic. Gorilla Glue is generally the best option for that. It might actually still be a little bit too big. Yeah, that's still a little bit too big, so let's wipe off some of that excess glue, trim it down a little bit further, You watch, this will be too small now. No, that would be lovely. Always measure again, or just guess. Guessing works. So that's in there. Again, getting the spacing correct, sort of by eye, but where I've got one that works and looks okay, I use that as a guide as well. It's going to be about there, I think. Leaves me room for 2 more to go in there, which one of them I've already got. Yep, that's about right for there, so I'll get that glued in as well. And then the last one. And after that, I can get these sprayed gold before I put the backing orange piece on it that I'm not painting at all. Need to leave that orange. Lining that up with the previous one, that's a good match. Now these aren't symmetrical, as you may have noticed. Originally my intention was to make them symmetrical, but it all got a bit technical trying to get the angles right and the sizes right, so I gave up on that. So what I will do is make them symmetrical, as in both these ones at the outside or the inside, whichever one looks right, so they're not looking like he's looking off to one side. Actually the originals aren't symmetrical anyway, they're a little bit off to one side anyway. So I won't bore you by doing any more of this. I'll do the last one and then say ready for the painting, and then installing the back piece and the lights. I'm going to leave them like that because that's actually the right distance apart, give or take, for the head. So I can hot glue these onto the back of those when they're on, and then we're good to go. When I can draw these out, fit them in, sorted. So I'll see you when that stage is done. I thought I'd film the first real destructive bit of the build. Finish the eyes, need to paint those, but I'm going to remove his eyes. It's worth doing it on video, isn't it? So I won't do it on the bench, that makes a lot more noise. Oh, it feels nasty and cruel. Sorry, Threepio. Oh. Right, I'm going to do that off camera, but it gives you the idea. Well, the eyes are done. I've just pushed them in, I haven't glued them in place yet, but I'm happy with how they've come out. I've still obviously got the backing pieces to sort out. And the eyes, the lights I've improved. With some discussion with Terry from Smooth's Workshop, he reminded me that you don't have to put them in series, you can put them in parallel, and you actually get more light for your buck, basically. He's going to be very cross because I didn't use any resistors in there as well. He said you should put in 150 ohms of resistance between each bulb and the power source, but I've got away without it. Being that I'm only using lithium batteries, I think it's going to be fine. He's convinced me that they're going to blow, which they might. If they do, I'll worry about it then, but I don't think they will. So there shouldn't be any irregularities in the power supply. So I've just put some tape around there to hold them the right distance apart, so they're actually going to go on the inside, obviously. About there, I've been able to go back to the original plan of having 3 on each eye, so I've spaced them around. The interior piece, so we'll go over them like that, and the lights will come on if I can flick the switch like that. So you should see 3 little spots of light and the whole thing glowing, obviously, and then that's coming through the slats as well. So it's all working as it should. I've just put a bit of tube over the switch there and drilled a hole in the back of the head. So I'm going to use some hot glue to hold that in place. Obviously that's too long, I'll cut that down once it's in place. But that's the idea. That being in there, that should be long enough for me to flick the switch and even flick it back again. So my next step is to get these painted. Obviously, as you can see, there's quite a lot of light bleed through these, so I'm going to coat the inside in black, the front and the back, and the outside obviously in gold. Going to see if I can get some of this filmed painting it. On the inside of the mouth I'll brush paint in black just to give a bit of depth to that as well. Once they're painted and dried, then I can see about getting the inside done and then fitting the insides here. I'm still going to basically going to use some black plastic art on the centre to give the centre black spot there. So that should be about there. I'm going to see if I can get this on camera, doing some painting of this, and then wiring up the electronic in the head. So yeah. Right, welcome to my garden. I'm using some primer, so I'm going to do the inside first. I'm not sure how well this is going to come out on the film, but there's not too much to see anyway. Basically, I'm just spraying to get some coverage on the inside. I haven't got my microphone obviously because I'm outside, so hopefully the sound's coming out okay. The inside, obviously, I'm not too concerned about, being that it's inside. The better bit is going to be when I turn over and do the outside. So I'm just going to give that again some coverage from a couple of different directions. Not going too heavy, and then obviously the ball joint I'm not worried about painting anyway, so I can use that to manoeuvre it around. Just trying to get the little bits in the neck bit done as well. Do that one. Get the top of his head done as well, making sure I'm getting in the ridge bits around the outside, front and back of that, and making sure I'm getting in the eyes as well, and the mouth. So I'll leave that to dry for a few minutes and then come back and do the gold. Now the gold I'm using is this Rust-Oleum metallic brilliant finish bright gold, which is quite shiny. So the trick I found is to apply it as ever in fairly light coats. And it gives a much nicer finish than the original sort of matte browny gold. The astute amongst you may have noticed that I've left the screw holes in the back. Pretty much that's because I need to screw these back on. So it's quite convenient having the bit to hold when you need to hold it. The edges are difficult to do when it's laying flat in the box, so just giving it a bit of a touch up from the edge here. That bit around the edge I think is visible as well, so go around there. Obviously the black can go over the gold without any real problem. Can't see anything I've missed on that one, so hopefully that's okay. This one, yeah, you can see the finish on the top is much nicer than the edges, so purely because of the way you've got to hold it to paint it. Just keeping shaking the bottle as well. sure I get a nice finish on that. I think I can't see any patches on that I haven't filled. So I'm going to let that dry again and then give it another coat, just to make sure it's got good coverage. And that should be that. So I'll see you back in a moment, back inside, and I'll see you about getting it together. Quite happy with the way the paintings come out on the gold. It's not perfect, but very little I do is. I painted the inside black and it's still wet, as you can see. I masked off the inside of the eyes so I could do that, but they're looking good. I like it, even if I do say so myself. The back, obviously, exactly the same. Inside black, outside gold. I did try a quick test with the lights, and I'm pretty sure that I'm not getting any bleed through at all. I didn't try it before I put the black inside, but certainly the gold has covered it up as well. So I'm happy with how that's going to be. Once that's dry, I'll see what I can do. Now, what I do need to do is get the eyes sorted with the lights. So these are basically the right distance apart to go in there. They've got a little bit of play. They're obviously the stems of the LEDs are flexible. But I figured the easiest way of doing it is actually going to be to get the eyes on first, to get these eye bits, which I've put just a bit of plastic card on there and painted black spot. Get them on first, and then I can adapt it and twist it a little bit to get them into there, because I'm not really going to be able to glue into that. So I'm using a hot glue gun, which I'm not an expert with. Hopefully it's going to work, that I can basically just get that to sit on there. Now these do have a straight pattern, which I'm going to try and get the right way around, but I don't think it's going to be terribly important if I don't. Now, as far as I'm aware, I should just be able to glue this and be done with it. So what I'm going to do is basically put some hot glue around there, and then trying to get that vertical, basically stick them into it. I think that'll basically just about do it. So we've actually got the three little lights around there, give or take, horizontal. So I'm going to do the same with the other one. Obviously once the glue is on there, it stays liquid for a short while. So it does give you a few seconds of wiggle room, playing around time before it sets. So that should be that. If I can bend these a bit to get them level with each other, and then using the outside of the eyes, I should be able to see I'm not too far off. They've got to come a little bit closer to each other, so that will be just a case of bending and reshaping a little bit, using some pliers there, just to give us a little bit more room, or rather a little bit less room between all of it. It should be a little bit closer again. So let's grab my pliers again. What I'm going to do is basically introduce a kink into the wires there, which will just shorten it down just a little bit. That should hopefully be, yep, I think that's close enough. So what I'm going to do now, try it again, make sure they're all still working, which they are. So for that one, why is that flickering? I think the connection is not great. I'm going to add some more glue around the outside here, just to make sure it doesn't move. and then give that a minute to set. Test it again. Yeah, all looking good. Then let's see if we can get that in there, hopefully without melting anything or causing any major problems. So they're lining up in the right places. A little bit of tweaking again. I reckon that's about as close as I'm going to get it. So I'm going to manage to get some hot glue in just across the top there, basically where I can get to. And that should have them in the right place there and lighten up. Gonna hold that for a minute and make sure that sets in there, and then we'll be able to play around with getting the power supply fitted to the back. As I say, I've drilled through that. I'm hoping I can just use some hot glue to hold the framework in place on that. Might need a little bit more holding these in at the bottom. Yeah, just going to add some more to the bottom of that. If I can get around there and get in there. Yeah, it's going to take a few minutes just to hold that in place. So once this is got some more glue on it, I'm going to resort to just holding it in place. So I'm not going to bore you with it doing that on camera. I'm going to add a little bit more glue in there so I can actually get that last bit pushed through. Yep, now I'm going to turn off the camera and hold that in place until that sets. So I'll see you in a moment. It's together and working. The one thing that doesn't work quite is the power switch. It didn't fit together quite how I hoped it was going to. So the switch actually runs up and down rather than left and right. So I've got to figure out a way of getting into it to attach something basically smaller than that, so it's going to work as a switch. But work it does, because when you turn his lights on, got glowy eyes that look just about right, I think. I'm very happy with how that's come out. So yeah, first time properly lighting something, I'm quite happy. One thing I do need to work on, as I say, is attaching something to the switch, but I'll worry about that in a moment. I've not screwed this together, I've just pushed it together for now again. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to leave the screws open on the back so we can get into it to change batteries, do anything we need to do. There's going to be problems down the line. So I think that's pretty much the head completed. I'll tidy up the switch, figure something out on that, and then get that screw back together. Again, the head is in gold. That's the gold that it used to be. So yeah, I'm happy with how that's coming together. The body itself, again, has been given the gold treatment, obviously matches, and yeah, more than happy with how that's coming together. The next step, while I'm still waiting for the putty to dry, is to do the brush painting on the wires. So I'm going to make a start on that in a moment and see how it goes. For the next stage, I'm getting on with the wires. So I'm going to be painting them colours. Got some green, red, blue and yellow. That seems to be the colours that are used most often in the different pictures I've got of Threepio. Basically I'm just going to randomly put them on and see how it looks. Going to start on the back, but obviously the front's going to be much the same. All I'm doing is simply getting some of the paint out, loading it on a brush, picking a wire and then painting it on. It's going to take a couple of coats. I'm using the Vallejo Air paints, which are basically thinned for airbrushing, so they come out quite thin in use, and obviously over black they don't come out very bold. I'm just going to go over, say quite lightly over the tops of the wires, trying to see where it goes through, which one goes over which, and try and make it look right. And then obviously when I go back over and go again, I'll be going around the edges of the wires and making it look better. But just to keep you up to date as to what's going on, I'm going to get the visor on and get in a bit closer now. So, I'll show you some more when there's more to see. Quick update before I get the last bit of priming and painting done. The sprue glue mostly worked, but didn't in a few places. So I've actually found a use for an old tube of Humbrol polycement, which doesn't work very well for gluing kits together, and so I tell you it's much better for things like that. But it does create a nice, even if transparent, filler, which isn't a solid filler, but I don't need it to be a solid filler, so I think I'm okay with that. So I've got that down and filled in. Excuse me. And it's now ready to go and prime. This is the bit that's going to be done in silver, and the silver I'm using for it is Humbrol acrylic silver. It's more of a matte finish than the gold, but I do want a different texture anyway, so I'm going to see how it goes, and I'll show you that when that's done. The other arms and legs again are done, touched up with the Humbrol, but they need to be gold anyway, so I'll be leaving those for now. I'm just going to go and paint this, and we'll see how that looks in a minute. First try with the silver didn't quite come out as I'd hoped. The paint smudged a bit in a couple of places, and the hole filling didn't go quite as well as I'd planned. One of them's not too bad. That's the one that's mainly the Humbrol cement, but the rest aren't nearly as good as I'd wanted. So I'm going to try again. Going to file down, sand down, refill, and try again, see how it goes. I'll refill and make special care on the other ones that are going to be going gold as well, just to try and get the edges better. I thought they were okay, but goes to show, what do I know? The colour is quite good. I like that. I like the silver. It's come out quite well. It's shinier than I thought it was going to be, which is actually not a bad match. Let me grab that body back. So that's the gold. Another light on. The gold and the silver go quite well. They're noticeably different, but not, not so much that it stands out too badly. So I think that's going to work. But so I need to work on my filling technique. So I'll get back to that and show you it on try number 2. We'll just ignore that this will ever happened. So yeah, don't tell anyone about this one, but we'll show you the better one in a minute. That's completed the painting. Done the silver bottom half of the right leg, the whole left leg in gold, and both arms and the top part of the leg in gold, as well as the body that I've already done. One little problem, well, a couple of minor problems, but nothing I'm too worried about. There's some of the paint I've obviously gone a bit too thick on, and it has dribbled a little bit, but not terribly, and not enough that I'm worried about. There is one little spot here that for some reason the paint wouldn't stick to. I'm assuming there's, I don't know, the primer stuck to it fine, but the paint wouldn't go over the primer. And I used the last of my rattle can of gold. So what I'm going to do is use some Vallejo gold and airbrush over the top of it a little bit, and see if I can just tidy that up a little bit. It's only one little spot, so I'm not overly concerned. But apart from that, I'm going to start reassembling. So I'll tidy that up and get some bits together, and then come back to you. Right, Threepio's almost done. Last couple of bits to do. My good friend Colin over at Festa 67's workshop has made me up a soundboard for him. So there's 3 little batteries in there, a couple of buttons, and a speaker, which I've just used double-sided tape that he thoughtfully attached to it as well, to hold in place. I've attached that there like that. Now the red button, he says, hold that to record more sounds onto it, or different sounds onto it, but he's pre-recorded some that are great already, so I'm not going to mess around with that. I've got the green button, which you press to make it go off. I'll play it now.
Hello, sir. I am C-3PO Human Cyborg Relations.
It goes on longer than that, but you can press it to start and stop. So I need to get the button on the outside. So what I've done is just cut using a knife, just a very small groove in there. This is the back panel, and what I've got is another bit of double-sided tape on the back of that button. So what I'm going to do is feed that up and across and around, and just attach that button
I am C-3PO human cyborg relations.
to the back of the neck.
It's against my programming to invest into
Now I could play around. Oh, let me turn it off again. I could play around and put a different button on, or a nicer button, but I figure that's, for the moment anyway, that will do absolutely fine. So when I get the back and the front together, obviously that's going to be round the back. Actually, I might put it a bit more round the back rather than on the top of the shoulder, but it's going to be out the way round the back, so you can reach around and just touch the button. I might put it around there. I'll see how it's going to look. But it's a small enough button that I'm not worried about it messing up the lines. I've got a bigger switch than that on the back of the head for the lights. But you can just press that and you'll get the talking. So that's that. I need to get the body back assembled. There's one other thing that I've seen a couple of people do that have got these, and that's the inside of the hands. I did just spray it all gold, but it's been pointing out that 3PO has actually got a sort of palm thing that's got mainly black with gold sort of squares and wires and things. So I'm going to find a picture of that and brush paint in, I say black, to make that a little bit nicer. And then it's just weathering, which I'm going to put a light weathering across all of him basically. So I'm going to get it back together with the speaker in there, see how it sounds when it's locked up, because it's obviously going to be different being locked into it. I don't think I'm going to need to cut any vents or anything for the sound to come out, but we'll see. Just wanted to do another little update. It's been a while since I did the last one. I know it'll all be 2 seconds ago on your video, but it's been a while, so I don't remember exactly where I left it. But I haven't forgotten about him. I will be getting back to him. Now I've got that soundboard sorted, so it's so much better than the original one as it came. So I'll get that assembled and get some painting done on the inside of the hands. Now it's time to put some detail into the hands. Now I've looked at some pictures online and found a few variations. Basically it's going to have 3 gold dots, mostly be black, so a couple of gold details and some sort of painted wires filling them in. So basically I'm going to use black primer just as a base to give me some colour, and I'm going to use some tape to mask off the bits that I'm not going to be doing. So what I'm going to do is cut this into some squares and then cut each square into more squares. So I'm just going to go across the middle there. This is all just eyeballing rather than actually measuring, and that one's messed up, so I won't use those. That's those there though. Okay, so I'll forget about them because they really didn't go very well at all. So I'm going to have to do a few more, I think. I didn't really count exactly how many I'm going to need. So we've got 3 for the thumb. 1, 2, and 3. About there, I think. Sort of equidistant and just around about. And 3 for each finger. Obviously a bit further away than from the palm than the others. A little bit more gap between them as well. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to get all of this masked up. I'll add some around the edge as well to create a better edge. Then it's just a case of brush painting them on. So I'll get these masking up done, and then I'll come back and show you some painting. But you know what painting looks like anyway. Okay, I've done 3 sides to that. I'm going to go up almost to the edge here to finish off, so I'm not overly worried about getting that in. Just making sure that that is stuck down. So basically just painting on. Now this primer goes on quite nicely, but it will need another coat. and I'm not being overly neat on the edge here because I'm not going as far into the edge as I know I need to go. I'll use a smaller, sort of more detailed brush to get closer in there on the second coat. This is just getting the basic main bit blocked in, so it gives me somewhere to aim at, really. So as I say, I'll leave that to dry, neaten up the edges, and then peel it off. So I'll come back when it's time to peel it off. One last thing before I remove the masking from this is to get the little gold wires put in. I figured it's easier to do this before I get the masking off, because then I can just go over the top of it. I'm putting in basically a little bit of some colours, bit of gold on the thumb, just taking that down to there. Not really going to be able to make out too much of this when it's actually assembled. Well, you're not really going to be able to see the inside of his hands either, but it's one of those, we'll know it's there, and you know, apart from anything else, it looks pretty good. Then I'm going to add some red to 2 fingers and some blue to the other 2. I'm not going to film all of this, but basically I'm going from the centre bit there, one line straight up through there, and just coming up in those black bits that I painted up there, which I know I forgot to do on the thumb, on the gold bit, but I'll do that in a moment. So I'm going to finish getting this done, and then get the masking off. Then we'll be ready to put the hands back together. So that's, say, the red and most of the gold. I'll touch out that other bit of gold there as well, just to put a little bit coming through. I assume these are sort of like tendons or that sort of thing. So blue red on there, and then I'll be ready to get the masking off. So see you in a moment. It should be dry now, so we'll get this off and we'll see how we do. I might need to touch up the edges a little bit. Sometimes it bleeds through a little bit, but yeah, a little bit of the edge there does need a little touch up, and the edge there as well, just those little corner pieces a little bit. This is the bit that's interesting to let's see how this looks. If I can grip it, that's nice. I'm happy with that. Let's grab out a couple of these as well and see how they look. Nice. Okay, I'm going to get the rest of these off and then see about, say, touching up the edges a little bit. Then we'll be ready to put them back together and get ready for some weathering. That's the 2 hands done. They're not exactly the same. The gaps are a bit bigger on one than the other, but say they're both not really be seen at all. But if they do get glimpsed, then you know they're much the same, aren't they? You'd look at that and you'd think they're about the same. So I'm happy with how they come out. I'm going to put them back onto 3PO himself, and then get ready to some filth, get some filth on him a little bit, oil stains and things. So nearly there, and we're back to where we started, but nicer. I've finished it, I've painted it, I've weathered it. The weathering didn't come out quite as I expected and hoped. Main reason being I forgot to do a gloss coat. So I've had some slight smearing with the underlying gold paint. I thought I was probably going to get away with it because it's been so long since I actually painted him gold. It would have been properly set and finished, but appears it wasn't. So I did have to go over and respray a little bit with some different gold. I used the Vallejo gold. So there are a couple of patches that aren't quite right, but lessons learnt for next time. All in all, I'm very happy with it. It could have been better, but it's fine. I'm very happy with how the eyes have come out. The 3 little lights in there do really make him pop. And yeah, so it's got some oil smearing there and everything. The arm articulator bits weren't finished as nicely as I thought I could have got them, but this plastic's not very nice to deal with, so yeah, so better than it was to begin with. That's pretty much what I was intending for and what I ended up getting. I'm happy with the silver leg rather than the red arm, and I'm happy with how most of the screw holes have been filled. Again, not invisibly, but it's better than the gaping holes than it was. And again, lessons learned. If I want to do the same sort of thing again, I know more what to use and be a bit more patient and let it go. The inside of the hand, I'm happy with how that's come out. So it's just little touches, little details that make a difference to it. I hope you've enjoyed watching the build, and hope you stick around for some more of what I'm building. Let me just activate the sound that Colin's done for me. I know it's around here somewhere. There it is. Somewhere.
I am C-3PO human cyborg relations. It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
Yeah, that's not very clear for you. Let me get the microphone a bit closer to where his sound comes out. You can hear him, and I'll sign off with him.
I am C-3PO human cyborg relations. It's against my programming to impersonate a deity. R2-D2, where are you? They're heading in this direction. What are we going to do? We'll be sent to the spice mines of Kessel or smashed into who knows what. We're doomed.
So, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Bye bye.